regular expression. It's something that ClearCheck is going to take advantage of with a lot of different sections and in a lot of different ways to apply them. And so I just thought I'd show you a couple common examples of how you can use regular expression to make the most of ClearCheck. And so with constraints, you're going to be able to quickly link different structures containing certain nomenclatures, the same way you can do that for structure checks. So with aliases, you're going to be able to plug in some regular expression strings to hopefully account for different naming of structures, so you don't have to spell out each individual other version of a structure. You can just use RegEx and it'll do it all with that entry. With reporting, you can use regular expression as well for cover page notes and text entry, where you can include wildcard operators, which I'll explain what that means in a bit, but you can automatically populate plan information in those notes. And then with plan checks, like I just showed, you can set up nomenclature checks that'll match your department standards, but then also you can use those new comparison custom checks as well using regular expression too. So just as an example for those constraints and those structure checks, what I've done here is I've added in a dot star before a chord, as you can see over here on the right. And basically what that means, that dot star, it's going to match anything that's before that string here. So it's going to look for the word chord, and then anything before it, including nothing, so maybe even like a space, it's then going to match it. So that would automatically match a spinal chord or a spinal space chord or a spinal underscore chord. As long as that word chord is in there and there's something before it or nothing, it's going to go ahead and just automatically match that up. Conversely, for PTVs, you can do that after the fact. So in this case, if you had a PTV1, PTV high, PTV 45, it's going to go ahead and link it to that first one it can find in that dropdown. So if you have multiple, you might need to get a little bit more specific with this, but hopefully in those single target plans, this is going to help reduce that time to link these individual structures in your template manager. And these changes that I'm talking about and making, these are all happening in the admin application for setup. For reporting, you can actually also include these in your report as well. And so when you're using text entry, which is something you can insert, you now can specify a default string of text to appear on every plan you print. And you're going to be able to use wildcard operators to go ahead and plug those in. It'll pull that information and automatically display it. So for instance, I'm using $ plan approver. It's going to see who that plan approver was and then print that out. Same for plan technique. It's going to see it's a VMAT plan and then print that out as well. That could be used for cover page notes, text entries, and some other sections as well. And then you also can now use regular expression like that dot star for your different machine types. So if every machine that you have should be using the same minimum field size or arc field size or things like that, you can now plug in a dot star to apply to everything instead of having to individually go through and write those out individually there. This last example is setting up some ID nomenclature checks as well when it comes to using your plan checks here. So for this example, we want our nomenclature to represent a G underscore and then a number corresponding with our gantry rotation. And so I'm briefly just going to walk you through the steps to build a check like this using that regular expression nomenclature here. And so the default that you'll typically see when you're first setting this up is that \D plus sign. And so what that means is that any number of digits are going to be accepted. So as long as a number exists in that name of the field, or I'm sorry, the field ID, then it's going to go ahead and pass. However, if you had something named field with an A after it, so there's no numbers, that would fail in this instance. So not necessarily where we want to be, but it would pass for our example up top because we do have a number in that check. Let's see if we can get a little bit more specific though. So now we're plugging in a G underscore, which is that first part of the check we're hoping to include. So as long as you now have a G underscore and then any number of numbers after that, this is also going to pass. However, if you also have numbers before the G, it's also going to pass in that case because you're not specifying that there can't be something before it. However, if you don't have any numbers after it, then that would fail. So just kind of getting a little bit closer with how this works. So getting a little bit more specific now, including this version as well. You can apply anchors as well, which would be a caret sign in the beginning, which is just saying that it has to start with a certain value. And then a $ would mean that it has to end with a different value here. So in this setup, we need to start with that G underscore, and we need to be finishing with any number of digits. And so you can see the different examples and what might pass and fail in that situation. So we're getting a lot closer because now we're starting off with that G underscore and we're finishing off with those numbers. But if we really wanted to be specific, we can also use what's called a wildcard operator. And so this is actually going to use that Eclipse API, pull that information in, and then compare it. And so in this case, what it's doing is it's making sure that that 0 after my G underscore actually matches in my plan a gantry of 0. And the same thing for my G underscore 180, that's also going to be matching appropriately as well. So this would be pretty specific to make sure that those field IDs match up. And so this is outlined in the ClearCheck manual, page 17. You can see all the different kinds of wildcard operators we support in this workspace, and a little brief explanation over on the right of all the different things that you can include. And you can get very creative as well by combining these together. So you can have that same example from before, but if you also wanted to include a couch angle, you might want to do an underscore C and then plug in that couch angle parameter there at the end. And then just so you're aware, that field ID limit in Eclipse is 16 characters. So just in case you were hoping to include a lot of information, just know that that is going to be a limiting factor in that regard. And so everything I just covered might seem like a lot, but just know that we do have materials that'll help you get started. So you're going to be able to use these documents that we've described or come up with to be able to plug and play and hopefully get these the way you like them through some trial and error. You can always email us, support@radformation, and we would be happy to send you these documents we've created that should answer most of your questions on regular expression.